Before we jump in, we must warn you this episode contains explicit content, such as sexual abuse, that may be disturbing to some people. Listener discretion is advised. Also, if this is the first time you're listening to Sacred Scandal, everything will make a lot more sense if you start with episode 1. In June 2019, the people of California filed a felony complaint against Naason Joaquin Garcia, Azalea Rangel Melendez, Susana Medina Oaxaca, and Alondra Ocampo. The 19-page document details 26 counts of criminal activity, including multiple counts of lewd act upon a child and conspiracy to commit the crime of human trafficking. 5 anonymous victims, known as Jane Does, describe in detail the crimes committed against them. The acts in the complaint are stomach-churning. I must warn you, in order to paint the whole picture, I'm going to describe some of them to you. At Naason's request, Alondra took over the East LA youth group in 2014, a little after he became the apostle. It was in this role, as a trusted leader of La Luz Del Mundo, that Alondra began to groom underage church members, drawing expertly from the same unwritten handbook that had been used on Alondra herself. She took the girls on trips to Victoria's Secret to buy them racy lingerie to dance in for Naason's pleasure. She gave them kinky schoolgirl outfits and directed them to touch themselves while she took their photographs. She told some of the girls to strip, slather whipped cream on their breasts and genitals, and lick it off each other in front of a running camera. Alondra took pictures of them with their legs open while being penetrated by dildos or, in a pinch, cucumbers. And she told them if they went against any of it, against any of the desires or wishes of the apostle, they were going against God himself. Those pictures, of course, were sent straight to Naason. Alondra didn't just find minors for Naason. When he visited LA, she would sometimes participate in their abuse, joining the apostle and its victims in bed, or directing their dances and tableaux alongside Susana Medina and Azalea Rangel. Some of these victims were as young as 12. To understand how Alondra Ocampo, the victim, became Alondra Ocampo, the predator, we have to take a closer look at the inner workings of the cult. The tight control, the constant fear, the guilt and shame, the psychological manipulation that is life inside La Luz del Mundo. This is Sacred Scandal, Season 2, Episode 7, The Groomers Handbook. I'm your host, Roberta Garza.
We were 5 minutes late. We had a curfew and we were 5 minutes late.
The trouble began when Elisa Flores came back minutes after her curfew. She grew up in Luling, Texas, with strict LLDM parents, and that night, Elisa and her sister had accompanied a friend of theirs on an unsanctioned date.
Because we weren't allowed to be with guys by ourselves or anything like that. Hey, can y'all come with me to go meet this guy? We go eat or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
So you were the chaperone?
Yes. It was me and my sister.
Elisa was 18. Her sister was a couple of years older.
And our father kicked us out.
Permanently. Because the church told them girls were not supposed to be out of the house alone at night. And they were definitely not supposed to be out of the house alone with boys.
When we got there and we were trying to get out of the car, our parents were at the door. And they're like, nope, y'all aren't allowed to come in. Y'all with those boys, y'all stay with the boys.
They weren't actually with the boys. They were just accompanying their friend on a date. But to her parents and to La Luz del Mundo, it was all the same.
I'm like, no, we're not with the boys. But that's how it went. Because in their eyes, or in the church's eyes, we were doing wrong because we were with the boys.
At first, the sisters went to live with an aunt, but the aunt's abusive husband was too much to handle. So then Elisa, her sister, and the boys they were out with decided to live together.
My sister said, well, the boys said they're going to get an apartment. We can have one room, they can have the other room. And I'm like, oh, okay, we'll do that. I thought, well, we'll be with my sister because we couldn't go home.
This was the 1990s. The arrangement wasn't necessarily a bad idea. It may have raised some eyebrows in a conservative town, but not much more. Except everyone involved belonged to La Luz del Mundo, and in La Luz del Mundo, teen boys and girls do not casually mingle.
And then my sister went and got married with one of the brothers and said, well, you need to get married with him because we can't be living with the boys like this. And I'm like, wait, what? No, I don't want to get married with him. I don't even know him like that.
Word got back to their dad that Elisa and her sister were living with the boys. So he asked an LLDM minister what to do. And the minister said,
take them today and take them to get married. So that's how I got married.
Elisa was just 18. The boys didn't really want to get married either, but were sympathetic to the bind Elisa and her sister were in.
The thing is that the person that I got married with, he was like, well, if I don't get married with you, what are you going to do? You can't go home. You can't go to your aunt's. So what can you do? I was like, I don't know. So I guess I feel like he did it out of compassion for me not to be on the street.
Friendships between men and women in LDM are prohibited, and all interactions between genders are closely monitored. If you want to approach someone of the opposite sex, it has to be in a public setting, and never for more than a couple of minutes. If your conversation runs overtime, or if you're found over and over with the same person, you're deemed to be flirting with indecency, and the church will pressure you into marriage.
They took us to the courthouse. We went and signed a paper. I just had on regular dress that I would wear for Sunday, and he just had a nice shirt and some pants on, blue jeans, I think, even. And that's how we got married.
And nobody cares if you don't like or even know your bride or groom.
I didn't want to be married. I didn't really like the person, but my job was to obey. And I figured if the minister said that, then I have to obey.
In LDM, especially for the unconditionals, those families closest and most loyal to the apostles, it's common for the church to choose your life partner for you. As Xochitl Martin tells us, marriage and friendship with people outside the church is strictly discouraged or even forbidden.
Because if you're a regular member of the church, you're absolutely not allowed to marry anybody outside of the congregation. You marry within your community.
Arranging who people marry is a common practice in cults like La Luz del Mundo. To decide who someone loves, who someone shares their lives with, it's such an intimate act of control. Because if you don't tightly control that aspect of their life, it leaves the cult open and vulnerable. What if a member meets someone outside the group and begins to see things differently? If they are exposed to other worlds that make them question the church's teachings? So arranged marriages within the community is a key aspect of keeping the cult's power over the flock intact. Arranged marriage helps the church in another, more material way as well. LDM holds these big mass weddings, where as many as 5,000 brides and grooms converge on the Grand Temple in Hermosa Provincia.
And then they just marry them off with the approval of the Apostle of Jesus Christ.
Often, the LDM members meet each other for the first time at the foot of the altar.
But all of these 5,000 members, let's just say that they married together, one from Spain and the other one maybe from Colombia, or somebody from the United States with somebody from Mexico. It was all to get documentation.
To get immigration papers through marriage, and help grow the church in whatever country the apostle needs it. Missionary work, but with legal papers.
Because they needed to get their word out all over the world.
And if you don't like your apostle arranged marriage, well, too bad, because in LDM, divorce is a sin. As Elisa unfortunately discovered when she found out her husband was less than an ideal match.
He was abusive. And I would go to the ministers and I told him, and he says, there's no divorce in the church. This is your cross. This is your punishment for what you did. And so you have to put up with it.
LDM's ministers did not see Elisa's abuse as a problem about her marriage or her husband. Instead, they viewed it as a problem about Elisa.
Everything was always my fault. If he pushed me down, if he hit me, if he punched me or whatever, what did you do to make him get to that point where he had to hit you?
Because you see, in LDM, women are seen as utterly subservient to men. A good woman doesn't complain. She obeys. And if you're suffering, perhaps it's because you're not holy enough. Or maybe because your faith is lacking.
Everybody that I have spoken to that are out of the cult and have suffered domestic violence issues have all been told by their minister, this is your cross. This is your cross of suffering, and this is what you have to go through. Pray to God to change his heart that he doesn't hurt you anymore. Put him in God's hands. You're not praying enough, you're not coming to church enough, and that's why God is allowing him to do these things to you. They do not protect women in this cult. They do not protect women at all.
In LLDM, since birth, women have little to no agency. They are their father's daughters, their husband's wives, and their children's mothers. They are put on this earth only to serve their church and their families, in that order, and to bear more children for the apostles' flock. They are expendable, disposable, domestic. They are to be treated as basic property by their male guardians. If those happen to be decent people, women may live subservient yet comfortable enough lives. If those are Samuel or Naason Joaquin, then your fate becomes like Alondra Ocampo's. That's after the break. Right after Alondra Ocampo, Susana Medina and Naason Joaquin Garcia were taken into custody. The case entered into what's known as pre-trial hearings. A pre-trial hearing is an audience where the prosecution, the accused, and the judge share information, such as evidence and possible witnesses, and negotiate the terms of the coming trial, including the defendant's plea.
Ready? All right, we're on the record, Peoples Garcia in Oaxaca. The defendant's present with the defendant Oaxaca appearing 977B through counsel.
In video after video from the court proceedings, Naason sits impassive in his orange jumpsuit. Black frame glasses, thinning salt and pepper wiry hair. He looks like a regular middle-aged man in his 50s. The only thing that seems inhuman about him is his ability to sit there, stone-faced, totally unmoved, as the horrific acts of abuse he committed are described.
I remember packing all of my preaching material because I was ready to evangelize and spread the holy gospel with you. But that was never your mission. That was not your holy plan. You took me on that first trip to introduce me to your disgusting secret world of sex and immorality that you thrived on. I was so stupid. I was delighted.
In those early pretrial videos, Alondra sits courtside, near Naason, who's usually surrounded by his formidable legal team. She's in a blue jumpsuit and a white shirt, a bright yellow collar peeking out from underneath. Her long black hair is tied up in a braided ponytail. As the lawyers from both sides discuss the case with the judge, Alondra sits stock straight in her chair, eyes dead ahead. But unlike Naason, who seems not even to acknowledge his surroundings, Alondra looks like a woman who was just hit by a jackhammer, like someone whose world has collapsed around her.
So we are not, at this juncture, in a position to say with absolute certainty these are 18 or 19-year-olds rather than 15, 16, or 17-year-olds.
But as the pre-trial hearings and depositions rolled on, Alondra's demeanor would change.
Ocampo requested that Jane Doe number 1 send her nude photos of herself because the servant of God, who is defendant Garcia, would be really happy if they sent pictures not wearing any clothes or something similar to that.
When Alondra was confronted with evidence of her abuse, and later, at her own hearing, when she had to face her victims and their family members, she wept openly, uncontrollably.
Alondra, no tuviste compasión por ella al entregarla al depravado. Tu Naason arruinaba la vida de mi hija. Alondra, le hiciste mucho daño a mi hija.
She woke up the day she was arrested, the day she was placed in a jail cell. And she's thinking to herself, wait a minute, how can the voice of God be in jail if he's the voice of God? That doesn't make sense. And that's when Alondra, fully woke up.
That's Fred Tiagaraja, Alondra Ocampo's lawyer, who we heard from last episode, and one of the very few people who's had regular contact with her since her arrest.
She had some doubts, actually, even before this, but those doubts didn't completely materialize until that first day that she's arrested and she discovers that Naason is arrested as well. And that's when the truth started to become clear to her.
For Alondra, who had been a good little LDM acolyte practically since birth, to be arrested alongside Naason was earth-shattering. She had been horribly abused and committed abuse herself under the belief that, because Samuel and Naason were the apostles of God, the chosen ones, it must somehow be okay. She was raised to think the abuse she'd received was not abuse at all, but a gift, a blessing. And that, like all blessings in LDM, they must be earned, sometimes through pain and discomfort. A small price to pay for pleasing the servant of God.
By the time she's an adult and she's being asked to help groom young girls for his pleasures, she's not doing that thinking to herself, well, we're doing bad things, but, bad things were done to me. She's doing that because she thinks this is holy. This is right. This is all that she has been taught. So she's perpetuating these crimes with the belief that this is for the benefit of a holy man.
One thing that makes religious cults like LLDM so attractive and so ripe for abuse is that it's so hard to disprove something as abstract as the supernatural, like the apostles' special connection to heaven or their inability to commit sin. Growing up inside the church, Alondra had no reason to doubt LLDM or her parents or everyone else around her when they claimed that the apostle was chosen by God to hold all his power on earth. And so she acted accordingly, going along with his every wish and desire.
She was provided by Miss Ocampo, provided whipped cream, strawberries, lingerie, and the other girl that would spray the whipped cream in.
Until she ended up sitting beside him in matching prison jumpsuits.
She said that Miss Ocampo told her that the photos were for Mr. Garcia and that she would send them to him.
More on that when we return. After 4 months of pretrial hearings and depositions, Alondra Ocampo pled guilty.
Alondra Ocampo is one of his inner circle, a sort of handmaiden accused of helping him recruit teenagers for sex. In a major development, she has pled guilty to 4 felony counts related to child sex abuse.
To LLDM's dismay, not only did Alondra plead guilty to 4 counts of child sex abuse, she began cooperating with the prosecutors, actively collaborating with Rob Bonta, California's Attorney General, and agreeing to testify against Naason Joaquin Garcia. Without speaking to Alondra directly, we can't know exactly why she chose to plead guilty and cooperate with the DA. What we know is there was substantial, damning documentation on Naason's abuses.
There are videos that were seized from Naason's laptop or iPad where he is engaging in basically sexual conduct. There was one where it involves him, a woman, and what appears to be a boy in a mask. The allegation was that the boy was actually the woman's nephew, I believe, and that the apostle liked doing these sorts of things. It wasn't even so much that he liked sex. he wanted something that was shocking, depraved. The more depraved, the better. And so he liked the idea of, making a woman have sex with her own family member.
And it's also possible that once removed from the church's narcotic brainwashing environment and confronted with its crimes under the unforgivingly stark light of a court of law, Alondra genuinely felt guilty.
Where a person's victimization ends and where their personal responsibility begins, it's difficult to pinpoint exactly, okay, at this second in time, she stopped being a victim and she started being a perpetrator. The reality is she's been a victim this entire time, and overlaid on top of that, there was this time when she's also assisting with crimes. But even when she's assisting with the crimes, she's still being a victim at the same time. So it's very difficult to grasp just from a standpoint of morality, but it also makes it overly complicated from a legal justice standpoint as well.
The court ultimately decided that Alondra was accountable, but not fully culpable for her crimes. She was sentenced to only 4 years.
She's sort of in this weird position where she's wearing two hats. She has the hat of somebody who has helped commit these crimes, unfortunately, and she also has the hat of someone who's had these crimes committed against her.
After having awaited her trial behind bars for 3 years, she was released on probation in December of 2022. In the early release decision, the court noted Alondra's good behavior and remorse towards her victims.
Nevertheless, she wants to apologize to people. She would love to, to reach out to the Jane Does and say, I'm so sorry for what has happened, but she cannot because they have named her as a defendant in a civil lawsuit.
That lawsuit, brought about by the Jane Does 1 to 5, is the reason we could only reach Alondra through her lawyer, Fred.
And as long as she is the named defendant, she cannot apologize, even though she really wants to. She cannot express her sympathies, even though that's what's in her heart.
It's hard to tell if the Jane Does or any of Alondra's other victims will eventually accept her apology. We reached out to them through their attorneys, and again, because of the ongoing lawsuit, they declined to comment. We will hear more on the Jane Doe story at a later episode. But what's clear is that Alondra was not the only person inside LLDM who was both abuser and abused.
I unfortunately trafficked 2 girls in my entire life. I never touched them, but yes, I took pictures of them for the apostle.
During her sexual servitude to Naason, Xochitl Martin was asked to begin grooming 2 young girls. She selected them and began preparing them for the apostle.
And these 2 girls, I went to their parents immediately. And even though Shadim was like, yeah, you can go to jail, I'm like, yeah, but you know what? At least their parents will know. At least their parents are going to know to get their kids out of there.
Xochitl went on to confess to the Department of Justice in Mexico and the US, and she has been a tireless activist for justice for LLDM's victims. But for every Xochitl and Alondra, for all the other women that were made to serve the apostles' perversions as victims turned groomers, there was a whole network of men who enabled and hid the church's abuses, and who profited from them.
This is just a business, and their product are people.
Even though, much of the focus of the case and the media is on the apostle directly, they're not the only ones that are committing these abuses. This sort of perversion has spread amongst the upper echelons of this church. I'm not saying that everybody in a position of power is committing this abuse, but certainly it is, it's more than just one person. And in fact, there's a lot of people that turn a blind eye, but there's also a lot of people that actively participate, men mainly, who actively participate in these abuses with the blessing of the apostle.
To understand just how much this rape culture was built into LLDM's structure, I'll leave you with an image. The Grand Temple in Hermosa Provincia is built over underground tunnels that connect the temple to outside buildings. Those allow the apostle and other members of the church to move without being seen.
There's a room underneath the temple that's obviously a room designed to make children feel more comfortable. and it's got a large teddy bear in there, and it's in pink. Like, this would be a room that a young girl might want to sleep in or be comfortable in. And this is a room that Alondra herself has seen, and it's a room that was used by Naason Joaquin to abuse young girls.
The ingrained abuse women suffer in different degrees and forms within LLDM is an extension of the apostle's absolute power. The way he flexes his godlike muscles over his congregation. But none of that would be able to happen if they could not pay for it. If the church's real purpose wasn't achieved. And that is profit. Lots of it.
They had the baby bear on a leash. All of the lions and tigers were in cages. They had gigantic Clydesdale horses. They had ostriches. Clearly there was, significant wealth associated with the family, to buy lions and tigers and keep them fed, and bears and Clydesdales and, a mansion and the rest of that.
On our next episode of Sacred Scandal, we take a look at LLDM's bottomless bottom line. Sacred Scandal, Luz Del Mundo is a production of Exile Content Studio in partnership with iHeart's My Cultura podcast network and is hosted by me, Roberta Garza. Produced by Sabine Jansen with the help of Stella Emmett, Reynolds Gutierrez, and Ana Isabel Octavio. Written by myself and Ryder Alsop. Research by Roberta Garza. Additional reporting by Florencia González Guerra Garcia. Engineering by Hugo Mendoza and Sabine Jansen. Sound design by Pachi Quiñones. Original music by Patrick Hart. Edited by Ryder Alsop and Rose Reed. Executive producers are Rose Reed, Carmen Graterol, Isaac Lee, and Nando Villa. Daniel Batista oversees audio at Exile Content Studio. Our executive producers at iHeart are Giselle Vances and Arlene Santana. Sacred Scandal was created by Melanie Bartley and Paula Barros. Special thanks to Sonic Union. For more podcasts, go to the iHeartRadio app or anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts.